Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate, and review. You will not believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. And today is episode 38, but just a reminder, next week, episode 39 is going to be a listener-submitted Q&A podcast. So send in, this is your last opportunity to send in your questions on social media or the website. Send them in to us, DM us, however you want to get them to us, and we will make sure we get those on the air next week. But today, this is our last episode of our series, Leadership Fundamentals. Episode 38, Execution.
All
right, Kevin, what do you got for us?
Execution, then we're done with it.
We're done.
There we go. So this whole series, we want as a starter, back to the basics, crash course, Vince Lombardi. This is a football, John Wooden. This is how you put on your sock. Kind of like, hey, let's revisit these basic things. And so we have walked through vision. That vision is the address to the destination that you intend to go. We've talked about culture, that culture is what is normalized in a group. Systems are how we seek to accomplish our vision. And teams are teams. But we spent the most of our time talking about why you wouldn't build a team and why you should build a team. And so it would seem like we should be done. Yeah. But today we are going to talk about execution.
Okay.
And I'll just say on the front end, the amount of content that we have for execution for this episode is not massive, so we get done a little earlier than your typical 20 minutes within there. But this is so important for us to emphasize because execution is the great separator between mediocre and great. Like, it isn't intention, it's execution. Everyone has the best of intentions. So actually having a plan, a system for execution is one of the most pivotal things. And I love this statement. We don't rise to the level of our intentions. We fall to the level of our systems. So when it comes to getting stuff done, because you could have a great vision, a great culture, great systems, but if you're not actually getting stuff done, you're only going to have intentions.
Yeah.
And so this is what typically happens. Is when your organization is smaller, and this is true for churches as well, you hire a get-it-done person. And that's great. Like you go, like honestly, in church world, we go, well, we got a couple pastors. Let's hire a business person because they're going to get stuff done. They know how to get stuff done. And man, it's as important as that may be, and as much as that may move you forward to hire a get-it-done person, you don't just need a get-it-done person. You need a get-it-done system. You need a get-it-done system. So this is what I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to take 5 minutes, and I want to give you that system for execution. And I'm only going to take 5 minutes on this because I want to acknowledge on the front end that every single thing I am about to share can be found in the book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. And so all I'm going to do right now is just to hopefully pique your interest for you to go get that book, because that explains what you really need to do. So we're going to spend 5 minutes on that. But then I want to give a couple ideas as to why we don't do execution well. So first the system, and then why we don't do execution well. Their system in 4 disciplines of execution, shocker, has 4 disciplines. Woo, everybody's surprised. But I want to walk through them. Discipline 1 is to focus on the wildly important. To focus on the wildly important, to not allow yourself to just get caught up in the whirlwind of activity and everything that's going on. And our staff at our individual campuses gets away 3 times a year and spends a day to figure out what's most important. And we all get together once a year to define for all of us what is the wildly important. But execution begins with prioritizing. And so that's by focusing on the wildly important. The second discipline of execution is to act on the lead measures. The lead measures. Now, here's the explanation within there. A lead measure has to be influenceable and predictive of success. And so this is the best way I know to explain it. Your weight is a lag measure. Your counting calories is a lead. Counting calories is you can influence it. You have total control over the calories you take in, and it is predictive of what your future weight will be. If you count calories long enough, you won't be shocked when you step on the scale. Now, in your organization, in your business, in your church, you should have leads. You should have, these are the things that are influenceable and they're predictive of future success. If we could talk church world, most churches look at worship attendance. That's a lag. You don't have any impact over that. And so it's figuring out what those leads are. Third discipline is to create a compelling scoreboard that shows those leads. For us in our system, we've identified 3 things that we look at. We look at the number of first-time guests, the number of people who go through Forward, which is kind of our onboarding process for our Hope team, and we look at the total number of people on the Hope team. All of our staff knows that these are the 3 things we obsess about. First-time guests, Forward, and Hope team. We display it over and over again internally because that is the compelling scoreboard. And then the fourth one is to create a cadence of accountability. You need to create a meeting rhythm that constantly revisits that scoreboard and ensures that people are acting on what is most important. This could be a monthly meeting. It could be a weekly staff meeting. We do this in our weekly staff meetings within our campuses. I'll acknowledge this on the front end, that when we are at our worst, that meeting seeps in, other conversations and discussions seep into that meeting. When we're at our best, we're laser focused on the wildly important. So again, this is the system that is put forth within the work for disciplines of execution. And they say, if you're going to execute, you need to focus on the wildly important. You need to act on the lead measures. You need to create a compelling scoreboard, and you need to create a cadence of accountability. So with that said, we will leave that behind now. I want to talk about why we don't do execution well. And there's a couple reasons, and it's easy to make other excuses, but my guess is that if you're struggling with getting stuff done, if you have great ideas, good plans, but it never formulates into action, it's one of these 3 things. First reason why we don't do execution well. We don't know what we're working towards. Like, we haven't identified the wildly important. And if we don't know what it's driving towards, execution is always going to suffer. And so part of this is vision. Part of this is just defining the win for different projects or actions. But if we don't know what we're working towards, execution will always suffer. Second piece, why we don't do execution well. Task completion isn't public. Task completion must be public.
Yep.
You have to figure out a way. Our team uses Trello. Trello for our team is a free task management software in which it creates little cards that are projects. You can assign tasks to people. And here's the beautiful thing is you know what the project is getting held up by. Like, it's digital, it's public, it's obvious. Like, everyone can see who has not gotten their piece done and what is holding us up. And that public nature of it creates accountability. If you hate digital and you have a small team, it is just as effective to get a marker board and to write on it who's responsible for what and telling them when they're done to check it off. Okay. The underlying principle within here is, as a manager, you have to have the ability to inspect what you expect. You have to be able to inspect what you expect. And so if you expect accountability, you have to have a way of, or if you expect execution, you have to have a way of holding people accountable in a public way that's obvious without having to run everyone down and say, did you get that done? Did you get that done? Did you get that done? So that's the second way. Task completion isn't public is why we don't do execution well. And then here's the third one. And this is tied together through everything within this whole series on leadership fundamentals. That is, you don't do execution well because it's beneath you. You're the big picture guy. You're the big ideas gal. You're the person who wants to look at you want to have dreams and visions and other stuff. And I don't deal with the minutia. I don't deal with the details. I'm big picture. And if execution feels beneath you, it is never going to happen.
Yep.
And one of the things they talk about in this fantastic book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, is they say every CEO should switch their abbreviation from Chief Executive Officer to Chief Execution Officer. That it is that important within teams. We talked about this idea. Speed of the leader, speed of the team. It goes with this, like the get it doneness of the leader. No one's going to quote me on this. I can promise you that. But the get it doneness of the leader will equal the get it doneness of the team.
Yep.
If a leader constantly lets things drop, the team will constantly let things drop. And so if you are not driving execution, no one else will. And so within all this is one, again, this may feel weird. You may go leadership fundamentals. Why are we talking about execution? Why we should have handled it. And the thing that separates good teams from great teams is not intention, but it's execution. And so you have to be laser focused on what you're getting done and that you're making the level of progress that you should be, or it will always suffer within your team. This is a fundamental. Do not let it slide.
Oh man, do not let it slide is right. You said you just brought this up and it just came to me because of it. You said CEO, chief. So here's a CEO for you. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Ballmer.
Yes.
Steve Ballmer,
eccentric owner of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah. So years ago, obviously, for those of you who don't know, most of you probably do, CEO of Microsoft for years. And he was the chief executive officer, right? But there was a part in his life where he decided, and he's probably doing this without actually calling out, but he wanted to be the chief execution officer. And he was at a conference, a Microsoft conference, and it's you can go search it on YouTube. It's hilarious. And he's just going back and forth on stage, just yelling. And what he's yelling the whole time is developers, developers, developers. And they were getting their butts kicked a little bit at that point in time from Apple with apps being created in stores. And so he was doing that. He knew what they needed to do. He needed more people to come out of the woodwork to help Microsoft compete at that level. But I was just thinking that funny, like a CEO, that's what he was doing. He was really trying to execute at a conference to get people to move into a task, which is sign up and do this today. Yep. Which is really funny. Here we go. Let's just have fun with this episode.
All right.
You're on Family Feud. And here we go. This is the question, all right? What are the top 3 reasons why stuff doesn't get done?
Top 3 reasons why stuff doesn't get done?
You got to buzz in. I wish there was a buzz in.
I don't know. I'm terrible at Family Feud. Do I have to guess?
No, I have
Do you have answers?
No. I'm asking you.
Why doesn't stuff get done?
Yeah, because we're talking about execution, right? So we're talking about getting, at the end of the day, things need to get done. And the top 3 reasons, I mean, you put one of them in there right away, which was we don't know what we're working towards. What are some of the other reasons?
Can I tell you why stuff doesn't get done? Let's go back to family dynamic.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to check on you.
There you go.
I'm not going to get something done if no one's going to notice that it's done and no one's going to ask me when it didn't. Like, my parents told me to clean my room. Like, when I was a kid, I shoved all the stuff under my bed. As an adult, if no one checked it, I would still shove the stuff under my bed. I don't care.
That's great.
And so if I'm not connected to the big picture and no one's ever going to follow up, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and so...
Did I reveal too much of my heart there? Like,
no,
should we be questioning my character?
No, I think you revealed the thing that we actually are seeing in all these different industries. Is what you've seen is, hey, and we get mad at the person that we report to for checking up on us. Like, you don't trust me? Well,
no.
Right. Right. Like, at what point do I need to say you need to trust yourself? Like, at some point, you have to decide, do you have that? You brought this up a couple episodes ago in our last series. I'm looking behind you because I can see the last series. I think it was Leading Yourself. You talked about desire.
Yeah.
And that value, that virtue.
Well, this is what I hear a lot of people say. So I'll say this in reference to give a little reflection of teams, but specifically to senior leaders, is to go, I'll hear a lot of people say, like, oh, they told me to do this massive project or to take this on, but they'll change their mind. And it's this thought of, if I can hold off on it long enough, they're going to switch direction because they're that inconsistent as a leader because they don't have a well-crafted vision that this is obviously connected to. And if I can just hold off on it long enough and procrastinate, they'll forget about it. And they'll pick up something else. And you know what I'm going to do then? I'll delay that one too. And so you go, as a senior leader, if some of your team, that's what they're thinking, it is imperative that you follow up.
Yes.
It is imperative that you have ways of holding people accountable.
Yeah. And then the follow-up isn't because we're picking on, when I follow up with the guys that I'm leading, the developers that I'm leading, I'm not picking on them. I'm trying to help them see what they don't see for themselves.
Yep.
Every time. And then once they actually catch on, they move way further down the line than I could have ever moved them myself. They did it themselves. They figured out their own desires within that.
And not just as a strategic advantage for your business. Okay, execution is that, but it's not just that.
Yes.
It is the greatest way to improve morale. Like, if you're not accomplishing much, if you're not getting much done, it is going to drain the emotions in the room. But when you go, we get stuff done around here, there is pride.
Oh, man.
In we work hard.
Yeah.
We move forward. This matters. And so you go, if you want to boost your team, don't give them a pep talk. Take on a project and complete it, then take on the next one.
That's good, man. If that's not, if that won't preach, I don't know what. That's something that everyone can do, right? Create the project that will move your team and propel them into their next steps. You talked about focus wildly on what's important, and you talked about every season 3 times a year.
For us,
that you do this specifically on those particular getaways, those times, those collaboration moments. Are you focused on execution specifically, or is that just part of how you execute?
That is the lead into execution. So the clarity of priority creates the ecosystem in which execution can thrive. And if everybody's not bought into what matters most, the tendency is the details, the emails, the everything else overwhelms what is most significant. So by clarifying what is wildly important, we are building, saying, this is what we're executing around.
Yeah.
This is why it matters that we get this stuff done. And it's also to acknowledge that some other stuff can fall off the wayside.
Yep. Okay, man. Well, I think that's all we've got today. Execution makes the world go round, that's for sure. What is something you want somebody to leave with today?
I want them to know as we wrap up this whole series on leadership fundamentals. Man, I hope this is the kind of thing that you listen to, that you share and pass on. But honestly, I hope this is something that you can come back to. And there's a couple books that I come back to every year because I know it's so good that there's stuff that I knew that I'm no longer doing. And so I hope this can serve as within that. And so if you need to save it, if you bookmark it, do something like that, then from time to time you'd be able to go, I need to brush up on systems. I'm frustrated. What do I need to do different? And that this could serve as that kind of resource for you.
That's awesome. We'll leave it right there. Man, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic, and this series, I hope, has helped you propel you forward in your leadership skills. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us that you did that. Also, post about these episodes and rate them and review them, or both. You won't believe how that helps us get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders just like you. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We'd love to hear your stories. And Kevin, episode 39 is next week. Tell them how excited you are about these questions.
Going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun going through different stuff on the practicals of leadership and different perspectives that people have. I'm pumped.
That's awesome. So you guys make sure you join us next week for that. Submit your questions any way you want to on social media. DM us, email us. However, we'll get them. We'll talk about them next week. It's going to be exciting. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.